Please join us in welcoming CEO of Wego, Veicht, in discussion with Skift Middle East reporter Josh Corder.
All right, everyone hear us okay?
Yep.
So, Ross, we were chatting a lot. It's called the Green Room. I call it the Gold Room because it's just so much
the
nicer.
Gold Green Room.
So much nicer in the Atlantis. Obviously, Wego started out based in Singapore. You're still there, but these days you have a much bigger focus on the Middle East. What prompted that focus? Moving operations to Dubai. What is it that makes this market, so ripe for a travel message search company like yours?
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, we localized Wego for, I think we did about 60 countries, 25 languages, and a whole bunch of countries in the Middle East started to take off. And we sort of started paying attention, came over to ATM, I think first time about 12 years ago, realized this was a big untapped market that was just beginning to go online. The big carriers had their e-commerce game together, but that was kind of it. There was Booking.com here, but there was no real OTAs in the region yet. The hotel chains had just sort of were beginning to invest in e-commerce, and we sort of realized we'd sort of cut our teeth in Southeast Asia with emerging markets, and the Middle East was kind of an interesting hybrid. It was emerging in the sense that it wasn't really online yet, but it was relatively well developed in the sense that incomes on the whole were relatively high, and people were traveling with fairly high frequencies. And so we started investing. We localized the product for the region, signed up all of the the airlines, the hotel chains, the OTAs as they came into the region. We brought a lot of players to the region from Europe, from Asia, from India, from China. And fast forward 12 years, we've now got, I think 75 million people have downloaded the Wego app, largely inside the Middle East region. It's about 80% of our total business now. This year it's about $1.5 billion worth of travel bookings done on the platform.
Not bad.
And I'm kind of glad we did pivot to the Middle East when we did. It's been relatively recession-proof over the last few years. With the oil prices nice and high, and the economies here have kept on growing quite nicely. And while all of the investments going into the destination, it's a pretty attractive region to be in. It's interesting. So I've been talking to international investors about the Middle East as an investment target now for over a decade, right? So investors in Europe, investors in the US, investors in Asia. And I reckon just over the last 18 months, the sentiment has really changed quite markedly. So big funds based in the US or Europe, they've always come to the Gulf to raise capital for their funds, which then gets deployed back in other markets. They're now sort of interested in this part of the world as a target. And that's something that's just sort of changed in the last 18 months.
I mean, we were talking about this exact thing on stage earlier with the hotel groups about how they're now exporting sort of their Middle Eastern style into overseas markets. For you, it sounds like sort of the Middle East move that you made has really paid off. Have you seen sort of the market mature in the way that you would have hoped? Has it perhaps exceeded your expectations in terms of moving over here?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's now about 80% of our business. We're effectively dual headquartered between Dubai and Singapore. We do a lot of tech product data science work out of Singapore. Out of Dubai, we've got all of our commercial, our marketing operation, all the account management, the sales operation. We have a lot of people that sort of fly back and forth. And yeah, I mean, this market's been very good to us. We sort of see. So Saudi's our biggest market, but the GCC is the core of the business, then the wider Middle East. And that's, so it's like 50, 60 million people in the GCC. That's the wider sort of 450 million Arabic speakers that sort of makes up the bigger opportunity longer term. And then we've been sort of growing quite fast down in Pakistan and India, and then organically over in Turkey. So we kind of bolt those on, and then if you add up the total population in that group, comparable to Southeast Asia. It's over like 700 million. So that's sort of the addressable market.
I mean, you're obviously sitting on a huge pile of data. I think a lot of people look to, I know you're not just OTA, you're meta search and corporate bookings and all that sort of stuff. A lot of people look to companies such as yours that they wish they had grasp of that data that supports bookings, obviously. What are you seeing in terms of sort of interest and patterns from Middle East users compared to, say, the Asia market or the European market?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the big things that's changed over the last sort of 10 years is the low-cost carriers have come in quite aggressively into this region. So that's shifted. There's a fair bit of booking shift from the full-service carriers over to the low-cost. So if we look at average order value, it's come down quite significantly. As the average fare has come down, so good for consumers, and I think that's fueled a lot of additional demand. We see people booking a lot later than they used to. So booking windows have come in significantly. We're excited about this Schengen-style visa initiative. I know it's not here just yet, but we think it's going to be it'd be good for the inbound tourists, like hop around the region more easily. But I think more importantly, it's going to be good for the people who are based here, who are resident in one of the GCC countries, who are now going to be able to spontaneously travel on weekends or wherever. So that's going to be good for us.
So this visa, Raki spoke about it on stage as well. By 2025, let's say, the Middle East, or specifically the GCC countries, sort of want to create a Schengen zone like you see in Europe. You go to France, Italy, various countries at once. All the Middle Eastern countries now want to see the same thing, where you travel from Dubai to Ras Al Khaimah to Amman to Saudi to wherever. And obviously it's a big opportunity for hotels. Where does the opportunity lie? Like, what's the perfect string of booking to utilize this unified visa? Is it Dubai as the anchor and then it's going to shift into Amman, or what do you think we're going to see?
I think as Muzammil was talking about earlier, I think you'll see a lot of people coming to Saudi for Umrah, maybe for Hajj, and then sort of bolting on UAE or bolting on Oman. You may also see some of the reverse. As Saudi's opening up as a destination, some people that were originally just coming for the UAE will bolt on a side trip into the kingdom. And taking away the visa friction is going to make that dramatically easier.
Are you seeing much of that now, sort of an increase in searches towards sort of the off-beaten track destinations, or for now is the brunt of your intrigue around sort of the Dubais and the Abu Dhabis of the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, the Middle East is it's an origin market, right? So it's largely GCC outbound, and like travel in most parts of the world, people travel in sort of concentric circles, right? So we do a ton of domestic in Saudi and in Egypt, and then there's a whole bunch of intra-GCC. So a lot of that's leisure, visiting friends and relatives, a lot of it's self-managed business. And then sort of wider Middle East, so a lot down to Egypt, a lot to Turkey, and all the popular European destinations are big for us. A fair bit down to South Asia, so India, Pakistan corridors, and a fair bit over to Southeast Asia.
I mean, what we've seen a lot in terms of sort of the inbound markets into the Middle East is in the Indian market, let's say, China market as well. There's a real rise of the middle class traveller who can't necessarily, or perhaps don't want to spend their money on the 5-star super hotels of this region. Are you seeing sort of any increased interest in those sort of lower income level products?
Yeah, I mean, so people, Wego, we aim to cater for the entire traveling population, and not everybody's staying upstairs here, right? So, yeah, and as the analyst was up here previously, right? So there's good investor returns to be made in the in the budget and the mid-range space, catering for the needs of travelers of all types. And we see a lot of demand for mid-range accommodation, and low-cost flights. Not everybody's traveling at the front of the bus and staying in the 7-star luxury options.
I mean, I feel like that's one of the next big things is we're going to see the rise of the lower cost carriers and the more affordable hotels and the off the beaten track destinations. But for now, is a lot of sort of your storefront window taken up by sort of people looking for those luxury products, or have you seen a shift?
So we tend to bias our merchandising towards slightly more aspirational destinations or slightly more aspirational accommodation options, and then people sort of go down through the list and sort of find what's right for them. But yeah, I mean, we are seeing people getting a bit further. Typically, the younger the traveler, the more inclined they are to get off the beaten track. It's typically people of my generation or older that are sort of like sort of repeating themselves.
And obviously, it's a young generation in the Middle East these days. I mean, the population in Saudi is incredibly young, for example.
Yeah, I mean, demographics for this region are sort of a nice tailwind for everybody who's interested in the Middle East as an origin market. It's sort of like average age under 30. The demographic pyramid actually looks like a pyramid as opposed to the countries in Northeast Asia, sort of like Japan at the forefront, but also now South Korea, Taiwan, China. The population is actually, like the addressable market for a lot of the online businesses is actually going to start getting smaller every year. Okay. I was in an interesting planning exercise with one of the big Japanese online travel groups years ago, and it's already built into the model that there's a certain amount of addressable market decline every single year going out, sort of like 5-10 years. And it's baked in, it's going to happen. We already know it's going to happen in East Asia. It's going to happen in a lot of the West European markets. Fortunately, in the Middle East, the population is growing, so people are reproducing it above the rate to well above the rate to keep the population stable. It's actually growing. That's true of all of the Middle East. I think it's true of most of Southeast Asia. So it's sort of the more pretty much all of East Asia and most of Western Europe is going to be sort of we're going to face markets that are actually getting smaller.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's like I've been in digital all my life, or for the last 30 plus years, and we've only ever dealt with addressable markets that grow year on year. But we are going to have to deal with it at some point.
So I'll shift topics and sort of talk about one of the big parts of your business, the meta search, which for others have sort of been in decline. A lot of people attribute that to what Google is doing, eating into that. What are you seeing with your meta search business? It's a room full of hoteliers, so maybe talk a bit about what meta search is in case they're not aware. But what are you seeing with that?
Yeah, I mean, so Wego operates multiple business models inside the same group. We're meta search. We've built our own online travel agency. We're now in corporate travel. We've got a media business. We've got a sort of a cashback e-commerce business. But the meta search is growing quite quickly. So we did about 45% year over year. And that was off a pretty strong base last year. Like we were largely COVID recovered last year. It's a very vibrant market. So to make meta search work, you need lots of fragmentation amongst the suppliers, and you need lots of competition amongst the channels. And both of those things are very true of the Middle East market. And it's actually getting more so. So you've got more low costs coming into the market. You've got Riyadh Air getting set up. There's fierce competition between the big Gulf super connectors. It's funny, like when we first came to the region, there was this like, you could count the number of OTAs on one hand. There's now like, somewhere between 50 and 100 active in the region, right? So there's been a real Cambrian explosion of online travel, and it's not slowing down anytime soon.
And yet only a handful of them people will know, the Expedias, the Booking.com and so on. What have you done to sort of enter that space and sort of thrive as sort of a independent player?
So, I mean, we've been laser focused on this region for over a decade. I think there's a lot to be said for focus. We're primarily a tech company. We happen to operate in the travel industry trying to solve travel problems, but we always come at it with a tech frame of reference. I mean, those companies you mentioned, they're also super active, throwing resources into the Middle East. So it's not like we've sort of had it to ourselves. Google's investing. So Google Flights and Google Hotels is taking share from Meta's worldwide. They're not that significant in this part of the world. I think some of the ways they shop, particularly on the air side, with the sort of the ITA software engine at the heart of it, doesn't lend itself to getting access to all of the inventory. But I mean, Google's a formidable company, and competition's a good thing. We study quite closely what they're doing, and sort of welcome it. I just wish sometimes they've got something of an unfair advantage, right? Being basically a monopoly in search, sticking their own products in front of any travel query. I prefer they didn't do that.
Well, the target for everyone in this room is they want to try and drive their direct bookings, right? And they're sort of fighting for that Google space to do so. But your position isn't necessarily to drive that direct booking. I think a lot of people look to companies such as yours and wish they had such a firm grasp on data as you do. So what are some of the mindset that you bring that you think like the hotel operators could do?
Yeah, just on Google, we sort of realized Google was going to be a competitor long time ago, right? So we've sort of tried to do everything we can to make sure we're not dependent on them as a channel. We use their channels to drive volume into Wego, but we're not dependent on it. So we've built the brand, invested a lot of money in the brand over the years. We've built the app install base, so we've got direct channel to talk to customers. And I think that formula can be applied to hoteliers as well, right? So wherever possible, you want to be in direct contact with your customer base. And make sure you're not dependent on any one channel, right? So diversity is a good thing. Hedge your bets.
You were saying to me before we started, your ambition with Wego is sort of, everyone makes this story that we're a tech company in X, we're a tech company in this. Nobody wants to be known as just a travel company anymore. They want to be known as a tech company. And you were saying you want to be the first app people download when they get a new phone. How do you achieve that? How are you going to make someone download Wego before another app?
Yeah, so somewhat unusually amongst a lot of the online travel companies, we spend roughly half of our marketing budget on branding. So we've done a lot of good old-fashioned TV. We've done billboards, radio, partnerships. Worked with a lot of tourism boards on co-marketing, and spent a lot of time making sure that the brand's top of mind. Done big partnerships with all the people who make ship any volume of mobile phones in this part of the world. So a lot of the time your phone will come preloaded with Wego on it. We've got I like to think best-in-class marketing marketing operation that leverages all the data science to make it as efficient as possible to go out there and bring in introduce new users to the brand. And the trick to getting them to install Wego when they go out and buy a new phone is to make sure they're having a good experience with us the first time, right? So it's on our product guys. We sort of spend a lot of time making sure that the product is best in class.
And in the Middle East, have there been sort of any specific lessons for you in this market in terms of how people sort of their habits, spending habits, that sort of thing, that you feel that you have a bit of an advantage compared to your larger, more international competitors? By having an ear on the ground here, what are you able to do, and how are you able to move that they can't do?
So everybody in this room, online travel is a super thin margin game. So being efficient at payments, both on the B2C side, but the B2B side, when you're paying suppliers, is super important. To do it efficiently in the Middle East, you basically need entities in every country, so you can have bank accounts in every country, so you can have access to the most cost-effective payment mechanisms. On the B2C side, you need to be able to accept whatever payment methods people want to be able to pay you in. So there's a lot of work to figure out what that is and then do the connectivity in every country. And then, I mean, none of that is impossible for any of the bigger guys to do, but it's hard. And there's a lot of regulatory friction in the Middle East. So I think it's a case of if it was easy, everybody be doing it. So it creates a little bit of a barrier if you actually do the extra work.
So what's the next focus or the next frontier for you in this region? What coming out in 2024, let's say?
So just quite a really interesting corporate travel platform. So we think there's a lot of, well, actually we see a lot of people using Wego today to book was basically business travel, but it's all unmanaged. We see them sort of flying out of UAE to Saudi on a Sunday morning, coming back Thursday night, right? So it's business.
That's a huge market, obviously. What you're talking about, going between Dubai and Saudi. And
Yeah, if you've ever tried to book it, it's not simple. Like the flights are packed. But there's a ton of unmanaged business travel, and there's a lot of travel which is managed via old-fashioned TMCs, travel management companies. But I think the younger generation that's grown up with B2C online travel get really frustrated when they're told to email the travel desk and to figure out their flight bookings and what they can book, So we're trying to build B2C simplicity, ease of use, but then overlaying all of the corporate travel policies and authorizations and all the special corporate deals. And we'll have a lot more to say about that in January. We're actually doing an event, this very venue. So
okay.
Watch this space.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We're out of time now.
Okay. All right.
I really appreciate chatting with you. Enjoyed the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks, everybody.